Okay, the last problem for chapter 3 is S37. S37 asks us to analyze the effects of transactions on the accounting equation and then to use those effects in order to prepare an unadjusted trial balance. And all this it wants done in Excel. So in order to do this, we have to access one of the skills development cases on the website it's given us. So I've gone back to that same website we've been using. Notice we're under the student edition here, okay? This is not any sort of edition that costs money. It's not Connect. It is simply just the student edition of the book that complements the book, okay? We go over here to skills development cases, click on skills development cases, and that brings us to the various cases within each chapter. We've already done chapter 1, we're now working on chapter 3. So I've selected chapter 3 for us already. It pulls open another tab, and then if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the case that we're working on, which is S37, right here. All right, so S37 says that we've become the CEO, we've started a company, and we've been taking down notes for individual transactions, but now it's time at the end of the month to make the journal entries because we haven't yet created the journal entries. So the first thing that it wants us to do is record a spreadsheet in which to record the effects of the October transactions and calculate the end of the month total. They then want us to use that spreadsheet to prepare a trial balance and check to make sure whether debits equal credits. Well, in order to get some of this Excel work done, to make sure that you understand Excel, it's also giving you a supplemental email, okay, supposedly from one of your friends, that says that here is a template that you can use in order to calculate the effects on the accounting equation and help you out in using Excel. So I'll post the Excel solution online, but I've created it for you, and there's a few things that I want to go over. I've used a similar template to what they indicated in the email in terms of colors and format and whatnot, okay? And I've done one additional step here. If you go to the second tab, so notice the tabs are listed down here at the bottom here. Here's the trial balance tab. Here's the journal entries tab. I've created all the journal entries for you as well. So you can scan through those journal entries during your own time. I've referenced each one of the dates, okay? Normally when you have a journal entry, we've been working with references as letters, but in typical practice it'll be referenced by a date. You could also reference a journal entry number in practice when you have several journal entries, hundreds, thousands, whatnot. Okay, usually they're referenced by a number as well. You'll have a date and a number associated with them. So look through these journal entries, but once you get the journal entries typed out, you then can link from the trial balance tab to the journal entries tab to pull over the effects on each one of the accounts. Notice the accounts listed here. These are all assets, so they're under the assets. These are liabilities, so they're under the liabilities. Remember, over here on stockholders' equity, remember in this chapter we talked about the extended accounting equation. Your chapter spoke about that, okay? Stockholders' equity is made up of contributed capital and retained earnings. But what is retained earnings made up of? Retained earnings is including beginning balance of retained earnings plus net income minus dividends, and that gives you the ending balance of retained earnings. Well, if you want to break down net income, what is net income made of? Net income is made up of revenue and expenses. Therefore, retained earnings can actually be broken down into net income and dividends, and then net income can be broken down into revenue and expenses. So that's how the extended accounting equation works here. That's why we're including revenue and expenses underneath stockholders' equity, okay? And this illustrates a caveat to the rule of increasing things on the right-hand side with a credit. Notice that expenses are increased with a debit, but this makes sense in accounting if you think at what expenses are. Remember that expenses reduce net income, and net income increases retained earnings. Since retained earnings has a credit balance, if we want to reduce net income or reduce retained earnings with net income, it only makes sense to reduce net incomes by using a debit. And that's why expenses have a debit. Expenses reduce net income, so the lower the net income, the lower the retained earnings, okay? All right, so working with some of the Excel information that we have here, like I told you at the beginning, I have linked these cells here to my second tab, which is the journal entries tab. And let me show you how I did that. It's very simple. I'm going to back this out. Right now it says 10,000, okay, for October 2nd. I'm going to back that out. So now I just push backspace, got rid of it. And now I'm going to push equals, and then I'm going to go to my second tab. So I'm going to the bottom here, the second tab, and I'm going to push equals 10,000, and then push enter. And then that gives me my 10,000. So it's just linking from one tab to the next. So that's where I've done and all the cells listed here, okay? There's other more advanced ways that will allow you to do it quicker, but we're not going to go over too many advanced concepts in chapter 3, okay? So once I've got those, I then need to sum up and make sure that my balances are working here. Notice that I have this sum formula on the left-hand side. Why do I have it on the left-hand side? Because cash has a normal debit balance, and the debits are more than the credits. Therefore, the balance that resides is a debit balance. It's called a net debit balance. Assets will almost always have a net debit balance. You may want to re-look at your account if you show a net credit balance, because that could be a problem. Notice, when you're summing T accounts, we're not putting totals on both sides. So we don't have a total on both sides. Instead, we have the total on the side that's bigger on every single time, okay? So, in order to do this, you can look up here again. If you go to the formula line all the way at the top, it tells you what we're doing. Remember we talked about last time using Excel the colors? Here you can see that the sum for the blue here, okay, is everything over on this side, and the sum for the green here is everything over this side. So we're taking this sum, the blue side, minus this sum, the green side, okay? So how do we do that? Again, I will push backspace to get rid of this. I will put equals, type the word sum, put parentheses, and then I'll take my cursor here and I'll drag all the way up here, and then I'll close off the parentheses. Notice when I close off the parentheses, okay, I'm going to back this out and show you one more quick thing here. Push sum. Notice, right now, this line is kind of, you're seeing kind of dashes go around it. It looks like it's highlighted type thing, okay? That's because we haven't yet finished the formula here. We need to close off the parentheses. Once we close off that parentheses, that dash will go away. So now it's become a solid line. That means we've closed off the formula. We could push enter right now and this formula would work, but it doesn't show us what we want. What we want is debits minus credits here, okay? Right now we just have the sum of all the debits. So let's fix this here. Again, we'll click back in our formula up here. So all I've done is I've clicked back in the top here. See how my cursor is blinking up there again? And I will subtract out the sum. So I'm going to use the sum again. And this time I'm going to do this side. Notice how it's blinking. I'm going to close off the parentheses. And now it's solid and push enter. And notice that again, we have the 9,555. Okay? So that's what we've done all the way across here for all the assets. You can follow the same similar format here. Okay? Going over to the liabilities, notice that the total is now on the right-hand side because liabilities have a normal credit balance, right? So again, we've summed up this. What we would do is sum up the credits minus the debits. We didn't have any debits in this instance, so we just summed the credits over here, okay? Same thing is true for unearned revenue. Going over here to stockholders' equity. Again, contributed capital has a normal credit balance, so again we're over here on the credit side. Notice that rental revenue, it has a normal credit balance, we're on the credit side again. Again, you just sum everything over here minus the sum of everything over here because credits increase contributed capital, credits increase rental revenue. And notice on expenses, we now have a debit because expenses are increased with a debit, they have a normal debit balance, okay? Real quickly, if you weren't familiar with some of this more simple formatting stuff, let me give you a little bit of hints right now. If you want to change the color of a cell, notice you have this paint bucket here. You just push that. That changes the color, so that'll help you with any of these accounts that are changed colors here. Okay, you just push that paint bucket all the way up here. I'm going to undo that real quick. If you wanted to change the lines in the cell, notice how this cell has a double line at the bottom and a single line at top. If you want to change the line in a cell, you go up to here where these lines are, okay? Do a drop down box here. okay? And then select the line you want to do, okay? If we wanted to do a double line with a single line on top, we'd select that, and notice how now we've changed the lines here of this cell. I'm going to undo that, okay? If you want to make more than one column combined, notice how this column is combined. We talked about this last time during our last Excel exercise, but I'll just give you guys one more preview here. You can select merge and center. If you don't want it to be merged and centered, you just want it to be merged, I like to hit Control 1. If you hit Control 1, it pulls up a shortcut format, so sometimes it takes a little time to pull that up real quick. And you go over to alignment here, you can select merge cells, and that will merge the cells together. Okay, so you can just select that. I'm going to click off that, and instead I'm just going to click merge and center, and then notice now that these three or four columns here are combined. So if I were to type something in this cell, it would now be in the center of those three columns. Notice when I push enter, it goes back to the leftmost column here. Okay, I'm going to undo that. And then the other thing is if you want to change the font color. So right now we have black font. Notice that up here we have white font. Okay, if we wanted to change that, just like it is in Word, I'm going to select red right here. And if we wanted to bold it, we can bold it by selecting bold over here. Okay. All right. So that's formatting all of our cells. Okay. Again, one more quick thing. If you're unfamiliar with how to get numbers formatted, I'm going to put 654 here. Okay. I've just left on the bold red format. If you want them to have decimals and you want them to have commas, so I will put one more number in here so you can see this. Okay? You want them to have decimals and you want them to have commas. You select this comma right here, and notice it changes to this style format where you have decimals and you have commas. If you wanted to change that again, you could hit Control 1, hold down Control and hit 1, and then you go over here to number, and you can select what kind of numbering you want. For instance, right now we have 2 decimal places. We don't have a symbol. A symbol will be like a currency symbol. So for instance, if we push the drop down, we could have dollars or whatever. And then notice we could change this to say currency. Currency has its own type of formatting. It shows you examples of what those numbers might look like in various scenarios. Okay? You could also select number. You could select general, etc., etc. So just gives you a little preview on how to format cells. Okay, once we've got this done, our goal after we've analyzed the accounting equation is then to create a trial balance. So notice we've created a trial balance here. Okay? At the top we have our header. I've put the name of the company, unadjusted trial balance, and then the date. On the left hand we have debits, and on the right hand side we have credits. I've used a simple linking formula that links the totals. How did I do this? I'll redo it real quickly for the first one. Notice that this is our total for cash here. Okay, here's cash. Here's our total. So I'll back this out, I'll reduce that, and then in order to do this again, I'd simply push equals, and then select the cell, push enter, and then we have that formula, okay? So that's what's been done here. For each side, notice the debits dealing with all the assets, the credits dealing with the liabilities, the revenues, and the stockholders' equity for contributed capital, and then the expenses also having a debit, okay? Expenses also having a debit balance. And then I've used the sum formula here. Again, the sum formula, you can click this sign right up here, and then grab all the amounts that you want and push enter, and then you have the sum. And that's done on both sides, okay? Notice that the total's balanced, so we know we've done it right. I'll post the solution, like I said, online so that you guys can review it. Please send me any questions that you might have.